Hello, hello, hello. So we're going to begin our post-performance discussion. We're going to chat for a little bit, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience. If you do have a question for our artists, just ask that you come down front. It's a little bit easier for me to hear you, and then I have to repeat the question into the mic because we're recording. We record all these talks. So I'm going to have the artist introduce myself, beginning to my left with the woman we all know and love.
Hi, hello everybody. Camille A. Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mora-Amina. I am this company's rehearsal director.
So I want to just start by saying my heart is so full, and I've watched it since the run through last Friday with joy every time, and then they get to that end and I start weeping, and it takes me off guard every time. I never feel it coming, and I know the dance note. I never see it coming. Can you talk about the seed of the idea that came from Lovecraft Country, which I talked about at length in the pre-show talk, and how you get to this? How do you get to this, like the seed of an idea coming from this existing narrative to make something that feels so aspirational and otherworldly and hopeful?
Thank you. Well, I'll first start. Thank you, Melanie. I really admire you and appreciate you, so I just want to give you love. Yeah. So I started working on this piece in 2021 during COVID when a lot of companies were having their bubble residencies. We had one at PS21, and I was working on a lot of projects during that time. And I liked everything except what I was doing with this piece. And at the time, I was also working on For Color Girls because we were all during the shutdown. But then 2022 was when For Color Girls was going to be on Broadway. And at the very end of that, and I'm going back for a reason, at the very end of the play by Ndizake Shange, one of the phrases is, "I found God in myself and I loved her fiercely." And I was talking to the cast during the read-through, and I put my arms up like this, and I said, "I don't know how we're gonna get there, but this is how I want us to end." And I was thinking about space and how Black women hold space, and then thinking more broadly how we can hold a block, how we can hold a building, how we can hold a whole street, how we can hold a whole city, how we can hold the whole USA, how we can hold the world, how we can go beyond the world. And so I started thinking, and at the same time during the shutdown, Lovecraft Country was on. And I'm all in it. I listen to the podcast. I mean, I'm like, Googling, find out what happened. And it got to that episode, and I was just like, that is a Black woman's story.
So we're talking about episode 7 of the series, which is also titled I Am.
Yes. And I thought, wow, all things are possible. And, you know, I love when art inspires art. And I just wanted to be in a space of joy. You know, there's so many challenges. People see your triumphs, but they don't necessarily see your hardships. And I just wanted to be in a space of joy that I created that had people that were all wanting joy and speaking from their truth and being their individual selves. And I was trying to think of a title, and I knew the title of I Am, the episode was called I Am, and I was thinking I should call it I Am. And then I was talking to a friend, and a friend asked me what the name of the piece was, and I said, I am. She was like, and you are what? And I was like, oh, no. I was like, I can't do that. I can't name it that. And then I was talking to another friend, and it was like, well, that's why you should name it that. Yeah. You know, that's the whole point of you claiming who you are. And I was just thinking, and what has come up for me, you have to name yourself. In order to continue walking this world and facing these challenges, if I am going to continue walking this world, I have to name myself, because if I allow others to name myself, then what am I doing? Well, whose value is right? Whose value is above? And so that's what we are claiming. I am, and then you can finish it. I am truth. I am love. I am joy. Hippolyta in the episode says, "I am the discoverer." Yes. So hopefully it encourages everyone to name themselves. And it's a work in progress, you know. It's not the end. Sometimes it's the beginning. Sometimes it's in the middle of, and we're just trying.
Yeah, and one of the things that
Thank you.
one of the things that's so interesting about that episode is that when she lands in this new place, when the character Hippolyta lands in this new place, and this other being is saying to her, name yourself, she's so confounded by the idea that she has the right to do so, and it's so foreign. And then she arrives at this place where she can ascend because she accepts that agency within herself. And that's what I see in these dancers. It's so fascinating to me because one of the things I said in the talk was, I've never seen Black people dance like this on stage. And I'm not talking about the dances they're doing, I'm talking about that purity of joy. There's no character, there's no affectation, there's no armor. I talked to Hurricane, one of the dancers, and one of my dear friends, and I said, how are you? And he said, I am me. He said, I'm amazing, I'm me on that stage. And what a gift you've given them. And so I'm wondering, Mora-Amina, can I ask you to talk about, like, as rehearsal director, how do you get them there and how do you keep that intact? Because I think as performers, we understand, like, the moment that we walk into something new, but having to sustain that and find it each time with every performance may be something that we don't know. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The first thing I will say is that gratefully and wonderfully, the dancers show up with it. Yeah. And so for me, it's just providing more perhaps imagery, or sometimes I talk about certain texts that they may want to check out, just to continue to inspire their imaginations, to continue to go there every day. Something that I say to them, and it's always a joy for me when we get to this point in the process, is when I start to ask them questions about what's going on. So this is different than, you need to stand on two, that arm's not right. This is different. What are you thinking when you look at your partner? How are you getting there? You know, and it's those in-betweens that are the most interesting, but it's those in-betweens that are actually the human experience. And if we are able to combine that with the wonderful choreography and the Black subjective perspective, then we got a show.
So let's talk about the music.
Yes, yes.
It's an incredible band.
Yeah.
And also these gorgeous arrangements of songs that we know. I want to say I never liked Dru Hill before this week. Talk to me how you selected those songs and how you landed in this soundscape.
Yeah. Well, first, Jalen Petinade, who is one of our composers, we both love drumline. And every time he plays, I mean, I could be on the other side of the space and he'll start playing drumline and I'll do their choreography that they do. And I thought, wow, what if this is like a Black army that's in the universe, and you have these two Black girls that are the majorettes, and they're just swinging their hair and starting it, and, you know, opening these portals to these various different worlds. And we jam when we're working with them. We were trying to find, I actually had SWV, I'm So Into You in here, because I had it in For Color Girls, and I was like, oh, maybe it'll work. And then it wasn't landing in the right way. And one of our violinists, Monique Roberts, was like, oh, well, what about Beauty by Dru Hill? And I was like, okay, let's try it. And then we tried it, and it was like, ta-da, you know, and it was just like, I always wanted to do something to Homeless. What else is what else? What else is in
Optimistic.
there? Optimistic.
Put your
is in
hands where your
there.
eyes can see.
You know, and that's just them jamming.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, let's keep that. Okay, yes, let's do that. Okay, let's pull that back a little. And Scott Patterson, who's one of my dear friends and has worked with me for years, he always teases me and says, like, I'll give a note, like I'll describe what I want, like, I want it really hot, but cold. And he was like, what? So that's kind of how I get there. I try to get us to a place where the music feels timeless. And we work on something, we work on it again, we work on it again. Shout out to Dia Love, who is our music director. She was the pianist. Martine Wade was our drummer. And Frederic Namen was our violinist. And it's just a living thing. It's not the situation where we're in two different rooms and they're working on the music and we're working on this together. So, you know, I'll tell them if I do something rhythmic like bop, 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 I'll ask Martine or Jalen, can you highlight that bop, bop? And then I'll say, can you go da 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 da? And they'll repeat that. And then I go, okay, let's jazz it up a little bit. And then they'll take it to that next level. So we're constantly doing this with each other in the space. And you know, it's like it's one of those things, like I grew up in the 90s, so these are like classic jams for me. And it's like, if you know, you know. And so I wanted to put something in there that is like, yes, this is us. This was R&B. This was gospel. This is all of these things living and continuing to live through bodies. So.
Now, before I take some questions from the audience, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about your whole other Broadway life. Which is booked and busy. And I know that some of, am I supposed to talk about Soul Train? I know that some of your Soul Train folks found their way into this production as well. I'm just wondering, how do you manage it all, Camille? Like, all of it's a production, and it feels like so many balls are in the air. And the thing that I've observed amongst your team this week is how, even with all of the stuff that's happening, how present you are with everyone. And so I just want to know how you do it, girl.
It's very hard. I'm serious. It is very, very hard. And I cannot do it alone. Like you honored my team. We have a team around us. We have a team that is working to help sustain my company, to help keep me strong and courageous and brave. And I think this is always how my brain operates, but there could be everything going on multiple times, because opera, musical theater, concert dance, each one is its own living planet that has things that are happening, challenges, triumphs, all at the same time. And everybody is asking 100% of you every time. No one's really focusing on that other planet. They're just focusing on what their planet needs to do. And I guess it's just how my brain operates. Like, so much could be going on, but when I'm in the room, I'm just like this, focusing on that one thing. And then when I go home, I have to answer all the various emails and stuff. But, you know, we have a new executive director, Dr. Michelle Ramos. And sitting next to her, our director of artistic planning, Joey Vigliotti. And so Joey is like, I don't know how you describe your position, but like, you live in between the musical theater and the concert dance. And he's constantly making sure that, which I have always wanted, is that concert dance, opera, musical theater, all are working inside of each other. Yes. They're very different, yes, but how can they live together? So my creative team, most of my creative team, I've worked on theater projects with. So some of the dancers, as you mentioned, are a part of other musicals that I've done. and it's all working and functioning together, but it is a challenge. And I brought this up to the musical theater students yesterday, and I was just telling them the various things that I have been told during my years. And one of the things was someone asked me why I was aiming so high, because I was doing pretty good for a Black girl. You know, there are a lot of things that have been, so that's why I say it's a challenge, and that's why you have to name yourself.
So we have time for a few questions from the audience. I know you're all clamoring to ask. If you could raise your hand, you'll say your question, and then I'll repeat your question on the mic. So the question, well, first it was Hell's Kitchen is amazing. And
Thank
then
you.
the question was
Thank you.
about creating work from the Black experience and performing it for predominantly white audiences. And yeah, I'm just going to leave the statement there and let you tackle however you want.
Yeah. First, thank you about Hell's Kitchen. And I tell whoever I work with, if it's a predominantly Black show, Black people, and that we are performing at the Met or Jacob's Pillow or something, I always tell them that this is not about performing the idea of the Black experience. This is about us living inside of the Black experience and giving people the opportunity to look inside and see what that means to be in community with each other. So it's not about the performance of it. It's never about that. And that's why it's so important that we do have to stay locked in as a community, because we don't, oh, I'm sorry. I have a very small voice. I'm sorry. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Staying in community.
Oh, thank you. Okay, we have to stay in community because we don't know if you know Optimistic by Sounds of Blackness or Beauty by Drew Hill or Homeless by Crystal Waters. You know, we know it for ourselves. And if we know it for ourselves, hopefully it becomes universal in a way. It's very specific, but I always believe the more specific you get, also the more universal things become. So I just, wherever I go, no matter what space, I'm gonna do me. Yes. And I've always been like that. And, I'm doing Gypsy this fall with George Wolfe and Andre McDonald. And people were like, oh, you're doing a classic Broadway show. I was like, yeah. I grew up on musical theater. My mom knows everything about musical theater. And I said, I know what musical theater was, but when I decided to enter it, I decided to enter it my way.
Can I ask, as a follow-up, when dancers are coming to you, when they're auditioning for you or coming into your orbit, is there an expectation that shared sensibility is there when they're walking in the door, or is there space for them to find it through working with you?
Mora-Amina also danced with the company, so she'll answer this one.
Yes. So from the perspective of a dancer in the company, again, I'm in the same generation as Camille, so there were so many things that she would choreograph or so many themes she would deal with that I knew exactly, I just knew exactly what that song is or what that gesture is or what, I could navigate my way around because I'm in the culture. What I would say, I wouldn't say that someone can't have that understanding. I would say it would be extremely difficult to come into this company and have a completely blank slate where the Black experience is concerned. Particularly, and not in this work as much, but there are other works that deal with difficult aspects of the experience and what is not, I'm gonna redact that. It's not that it's not, it's very, very, very difficult to keep up with the rigor of the dance and to be able to deliver the dramaturgy of subject matters that are complicated, that are historical. And I'm speaking of works like Mr. Tolerance, which deals in concepts of stereotypes, Black comedy, from blackface to now. There's this whole historical span. I personally, as an artist, wouldn't want to jump into choreography and have to learn this entire cultural language. So there is a mooring that is preferable for the dancer, and there's even at times an interview process. And it's not for us to go, well, you belong here, you don't. It's also for them to say, hey, I belong here, I don't. Because every Black person or every person who doesn't have white skin privilege isn't walking around trying to have the experience that we represent. And that's fine, because we're not a monolith. But here, it helps if you understand where some of these songs are coming from and where some of the cultural aspects are concerned. But something that I also say to the dancers is, just because we're Black doesn't mean we know all things Black. If there's somebody here that's doing a style of dance that you're not familiar with and that you need to perform, you need to pull your new friend over to the side and have them help you. There are many great things that are going on stage that if I was asked or tasked to perform them, I definitely would need time. So I hope that answers that question.
Like, can you talk about where Black girls that can dance and meaning of that?
Camille is asking me to speak about a section called We're Black Girls That Can Dance. And this is when you see our, I would say the two women that start off the drumline in Homecoming, and they are reoccurring. And that section in particular speaks very closely to me, and I believe you as well. And it encompasses all of the things that when you are a Black girl or trying to become a Black girl that can dance, that you may have aspirations towards being able to do, but also in the dance spaces we grew up in, you better be able to do it. And it was a constant test to make sure that we were equipped to be able to do it all. I come from a training where the director there used to say, if someone comes in and asks these Black dancers to stand on their eyelash, they better be able to. And that's out of a history of performance and virtuosity and versatility that was necessary for Black bodies to have to be able to get on stage. And to uphold that tradition in We're Black Girls That Can Dance is to be able to bring those ancestors forward, but also to project them into a future, to have the right to be on stage in your braids and let your ponytail flop. There was a time when you had to have your hair straightened to be on stage, or you had to be able to pass a paper bag test to be on stage. So to be able to see all shades of folks on stage delivering these messages is very dear to me, but back to our first question here, is very dear to, I would think, the ancestors.
That's why I like her talking about that.
Okay, I think we have time for one or two more. We'll go here and then we'll go there. Yeah.
I mean, this is it. I mean, the thing about it is, like, I've been supporting her from the beginning. This is not anything new.
So just for those who couldn't hear, the question was about Kamala Harris.
Yeah, this is not anything new. I didn't just go, oh yeah, no. At the beginning, she was a Black girl. And I don't know if she dances. I don't know, but I do. And this
She
is
went
how
through that AKA.
Yeah.
No, I was going to
Yeah.
say
So
she's
she
an AKA
had to
and
have
she went
danced
to
at some
Howard. I know
point.
she knows how to do
Yeah.
a two-step.
And this is how I express joy, and we're all expressing our joy. So I feel like this is for us, all of us. Her, that's what I'm doing. I'm making space so we can live in our truth. That's what I'm doing.
And to your point about optimism, I'm just sharing my own personal experience. I have one of two choices as a Black woman. I can either have that hope and project that hope forward, or I can die. And that could mean spiritually, it could mean physically, it could mean mentally. There's some people in this world who don't have a choice but to have hope. For others, it might be a luxury, but for me, it's not.
We have time for one more. Yes. So the question was, when did you find your pocket? And that knowing and assuredness that you could share that and project onto other dancers as well.
First, thank you. Anybody that knows will probably know that I will say I probably have. I don't think I've found my pocket yet. I'm always trying to dig deeper, go further, continue to listen. I understand what you mean by being in the pocket. I think being in the pocket is about being brave enough to do your work and value it regardless of whether people place value on it or not. I think that's when you're in the pocket. When you're not asking, you're not apologizing, you're not asking, you're being. I think that's when you're in the pocket. And I feel like every time I step into a new space, I have to re-engage that pocket. That's a hard question. Or maybe I just made it really dramatic and hard. I don't know which one.
So we could go on, but she did just dance a whole show. So I think it's time that we wrap up. If I could get a round of applause for these wonderful artists on stage. Thank you all for joining us. Enjoy your afternoon.